1, 2, 1, 2. Friends and neighbors, welcome back to the Brownstone. My name is Rich Brown. Today I wanted to talk about chord tones, and especially chord tones as they relate to a certain key. Because I think the thing that we really need to remember, and the thing that's very easy to forget, is the fact that when you're playing diatonically, and you're playing a song that has a particular set of diatonic changes, in other words, they all relate to one key, then all of those chord tones can be accessed through one scale, right? So to demonstrate that, what I did was I played through the song Autumn Leaves, which is in the key of G minor, and I only used the G minor scale to play through the entire song, right? I didn't stray from this area of the neck at all. And you can hear I was still covering all the changes in a way that was very clear and very melodic. I didn't want to use a backing track because I wanted you to really hear the song on its own, which is something else that I kind of have a pet peeve about when it comes to bass solos. Sometimes you hear these like blazing bass solos and it doesn't matter, like you can't even tell if they're playing Giant Steps or Happy Birthday. It's just like it's all over the map with no reference to the harmony. So if you are at that level where you're able to improvise over changes, then I suggest you turn off the iReal Pro and the backing tracks and just play by yourself. Walk through the changes, solo over the changes, and make sure that the song is understood from start to finish, so that if there was someone sitting in front of you who may or may not be a musician, they would know exactly what's happening under your fingers. It's very important. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about accessing all of those chord tones on one scale. I'm not going to go through Autumn Leaves. I want to go through something a little bit simpler, just taking like a 2-5-1 chord progression. That's it, 2-5-1. So when I think about a 2-5-1 in the key of C, what have we got? We've got D minor to G7 to C major 7. So when I think about that, I want to think about like the C major scale. I'm playing the C major scale starting at the 8th fret of the E string. So again, the thing to remember is that I don't have to jump all over the neck in order to access those three chords. They are all there, built into the scale, right? That's why we have these exercises where you play through. All those exercises are really important. People say, oh yeah, you shouldn't practice those because they're useless. They're not useless. There's a lot of music in those exercises. So if I think about the chord tones of each of those chords in the progression, I've got a 2 chord, which is the D minor, the 5 chord, which is the G7, and then the 1 chord. But I can even extend that idea a little bit more and incorporate the 7th wherever I can find the 7th. Incorporate the 3rd wherever I can find the 3rd. Incorporate the 5th wherever I can find the 5th. What I mean is that if I play, let's say, the 5 chord, the G7, so there's the root, the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th. Well, the 7th is the F, and I have an F here. So I can even just play like 7th, root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. But check this out. I haven't even touched the E string yet, right? So if I come down, there's my 7th, 5th, 3rd, root, 7th. Here's my 5th at the 10th fret of the E string. Here's my 3rd, right? At the, 7th fret of the E string. So if I want to access all of the chord tones of a G7 in this position, I've got 3rd, 5th, 7th, root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. The chord tones in this particular case, the chord tones of a G7, the 3rd is B, D to the 5th. There's my 7th, F, the root, G, 3rd, B again. There's the 5th, D, and there's F again. That's so cool, right? I can do the same thing with the 1 chord, starting from the 7th, below the root, right? I can do the same thing with the 2 chord, that D minor. The 7th of that 2 chord is going to be the note C. Right? So I've got, here are my chord tones for the D minor. And then here, I'm stopping at the 7th. So my root is there, that's D. There's my minor 3rd, that's F. Yeah. And then I can go down to C, the 7th of that 2 chord. So there's a lot of information there. But basically, once you get those notes, they create a shape. And then once you have that shape, that's your arpeggio, or however you want to call it. If you're not familiar with this information, I suggest you get some paper and some sort of writing implement and write this information down. People get on my case a lot about not supplying PDFs, and I don't. I want this to feel like a real lesson, a real one-on-one lesson, like you're sitting across from me in a chair and you're playing the bass along with me. So when I'm giving a lesson in real time, I don't really supply PDFs. I'm just giving you the information. And then it's up to you to learn that information and get it in to the subconscious one way or another. It's a bit of tough love, but I find that sort of supplying PDFs and supplying information to students doesn't really get the student to internalize it as well. Because you've got this piece of paper in front of you that you didn't write. If you write the information down yourself, you really have to think about what you're writing as you write it, and then it becomes more ingrained. So that's the reason why there are no PDFs on my channel. If you want to take the notes, you'll be better off for doing it. I want you to now understand the shapes being created when you access all of the chord tones in a particular area, this being the area of C major. So when I think about the 2 chord, the lowest note in that position is going to be the 7th, which is the note C. So if this is my arpeggio, root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, then I'm missing a couple of notes, right, that I can access. Here's my 7th, below the root. I can go up to the root there, which means if I can go up to the root, then I can access the minor 3rd there. So understand that shape. And now you know when you're thinking about like a 2 chord and a 2-5-1 chord progression, it's not just going to be this anymore. That's cool, and it's important to know that. But remember that you're missing out on a few more notes that you can access if you want to play all of the chord tones. So this shape is one shape, but the shape that you really should know is this shape. Because that gives you all of the chord tones. 7th, root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, root, 3rd. Right? Let's do the same thing for the 5 chord. Here's my 5 chord, root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. So I'm on G7 at the 10th fret of the A string. So as you can see, I've got those chord tones happening on 3 strings. So I'm missing out on a few notes. What are those notes? If I'm on the root here, I can go down to that flat 7, which in this case is F, down to the D, which is the 5th, and then the 3rd, B. So I have 3 notes below the root that I can access over that 5 chord. So my shape really becomes this. Does it make sense? I hope that makes sense. Remember, write this down. If you really want to understand it and you don't understand it just yet, it's better that you write it down. So now let's do the same thing for the 1 chord, C major. So with your C major arpeggio, accessing those chord tones, I've got the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th. But then I don't have to stop there, right? I've got root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. There's my root again, and then there's the 3rd. So when I come back down, I can include the 7th below the root. So then this shape becomes this shape. Right? So I can access all of those notes just using the C major scale, right? The entire chord progression is covered. Here's my 2 chord. Here's my 5 chord. And then here's my 1 chord. So my suggestion would be to learn these new shapes over a 2-5-1 chord progression in the key of C. And then once you have that down, change the progression. Do the same thing with a 1-6-2-5 chord progression, or just a 1-4-5 chord progression. Check out and access all of the chord tones available to you in one area of the neck using one scale. If you're in the key of C and you're playing a 1-6-2-5, 2-5-1, 1-4-5, doesn't matter what the progression is. If it's diatonic to the key, then all of the chord tones will be accessed in one scale. If you're in the key of C, C major, then all the notes are going to be accessed in the C major scale. If you don't believe me, watch the intro to this video again. And I'm only using the G minor scale to play the entire song of Autumn Leaves. There's one chord that's not diatonic to the key, and you can hear where I make little adjustments to accommodate for that. Otherwise, all of the other chords are diatonic to the key, and I'm only using the G minor scale. In fact, I'll demonstrate that even further by, let's say I walk through the changes of Autumn Leaves, and then what I'll do is use the B flat major scale. Why? Because it is the relative major of G minor. So if those 2 chords, those 2 scales are relative to each other, then they should be interchangeable, which means I should be able to access all of the chord tones of that song using either scale. So you've heard me solo over the changes of Autumn Leaves using the G minor scale. Now I'm going to walk through the changes using the B flat major scale, which is the relative major of G minor. Wish me luck. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3. So I hope that all makes sense, friends and neighbors. You too can access any chord diatonic to a particular key using the scale corresponding to that key. It's not that hard. And if you can understand how to access all of the chord tones in one area of the neck, then improvising, whether it's walking or soloing over the changes, is going to be very good. You know what to do. If you like this video, all the information is going to be in the description box below. Like, subscribe, donate, blah, blah, blah. I thank you for visiting me here in the Brownstone once again, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.